Yesterday alone, I received 2 different messages asking about the tire size on the 4runner and what I'm running on it. And so I thought, what the heck, I may as well make another video about these. I haven't done that in a little while. So 285 70 17s, which is what I'm running on the 4runner. That's a pretty popular size in the 4runner community. But the thing is, they do require some work. Like they're popular, it's a great size for the truck, but they won't just mount up without any modification or anything. The thing is, once you step up to a size that's this much bigger than stock, you're going to run into a more distinct list of pros and cons. There's going to be upsides and downsides. I know I myself went back and forth quite a bit on what size I was going to put on the 4runner originally, but I knew there was going to be a downside to running these tires, and I just thought, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to go for it. I just want to put the big ones on and just see what it's like. And overall, they have been great. Like I don't regret running the 285s on the 4runner at all, but there are definitely reasons why I chose to go with the smaller 265s on the Tacoma instead of running the same size on both trucks. It would have been really convenient to have the same size tires on both trucks, but they just don't suit the Tacoma setup very well. But anyways, I've been running these on this 4runner for over 5 years now. I did the lift and the tires on this like within a month of when I first bought it. So I think it's safe to say I got a pretty good idea of what life is like with these tires on the truck. So let's jump right into the pros here. The first one obviously is the grip. More contact patches is going to mean more traction. That's the whole reason for running tires like this. I gotta say, this thing climbs hills in 4-low like it's nothing. It crawls up everything. Lots of traction. And off-road performance is a big benefit to running this size tire. You get more ground clearance, not a whole lot. It's not as much as you would think, but it does help, and it's ground clearance on the axles, so that's important as well. Aside from that, another big plus to running these is a smoother ride. It's a lot more like riding on balloons when you have this much sidewall, that's for sure. It definitely takes the edge off of bumps and sharp hits, sharp impacts. Just because you got more cushion there, you got a good sized sidewall, and that's going to absorb a lot of the impact on a sharp bump. Next up is the ability to air them down. And sticking with the topic of sidewall height, it allows you to air down when off-roading for better traction and better comfort on dirt roads and stuff. Letting some air out of your tires, that's a really common thing people do when they take these things off-road. And a low-profile tire is just not going to be able to do that as much. It just doesn't. The sidewall doesn't have enough room, enough give, enough flex in it to be able to properly kind of wrap around an object that you're trying to climb. So this extra sidewall height, it really helps with being able to air them down. Another one, I'm gonna just go ahead and say it, guys. It's looks. Nothing cures the soccer mom look of a stock 4runner quite like a lift and a big set of tires. I get a lot of compliments on these from people that just see me at a gas station or anywhere really. Yeah, it's an attention grabber, and that's not exactly why I put them on the truck, but they do look good. I mean, they suit the shape and the size of the 4runner, I think, really, really well. So I think, in all honesty, looks is a big reason why a lot of people run this size tire. All right, now we're on to the cons, and the first and foremost is going to be clearance. Now, these, as I said earlier, they don't fit. At least they don't in stock form. I did have to do some trimming, and I already did a video on that. I already showed you what all had to be done. One thing you'll see is my body mounts are still intact. You can see I did not have to do a body mount chop. Most people that run this size tire do, and I guess I just got lucky. Maybe it's because I'm running the stock upper control arm still. And if you look, the front wheels do sit a little forward in the fender. And that's just because of the caster that I'm running. And so the good news is it keeps me from having to chop that body mount. But the bad news is it does affect your stability on higher speed highways. In my specific case, I don't think the alignment is far enough off to really make a noticeable difference. This thing is really, really stable at high speeds. So again, I think I maybe just got lucky, but I didn't have to chop the body mount. A lot of people do have to. Now, the downside to having the tire a little bit, or the wheel a little forward in the wheel well here, I did have to do some cutting to the front bumper. Meaning to get at cleaning that up and make it a little bit nicer, but you know how it is. We got a list of things to do, and that's not high up on it. You can see I don't know if you can get in there, I also moved the inner fender liner forward I did it a whole bunch. I moved it forward probably about 5 inches or something. And I remounted I drilled some new holes and used the original mounting hardware to do it, but that gained a whole bunch of space up front. And between that and then trimming the corner of the bumper itself, that got me the clearance that I needed. At full lock, I'm not rubbing. It rubs a little bit off-road, like if I'm stuffed, with the wheel stuffed all the way in the fender, it might rub a little bit, I'll be honest, but for as often as I'm going hardcore off-roading like that, it's not a real problem for me. I could always do a bit more trimming if I had to. Aside from that, I did remove the front and rear mud flaps. You can see they're gone. Thing is, with these tires, and more importantly, these wheels and this offset, these mud flaps aren't doing much good anyways. I found when I had the rears on still, it was still spraying right up on the rear bumper. So the dirt and grime and rocks are kind of shooting right around the factory mud flaps, so they're not helpful anyways, so they came off. And you'll see I also have the running boards removed as well. I honestly didn't leave them on long enough to even find out if they were going to rub anything. So I can't confirm if that's required or not, but I do have mine removed, so it's just a non-issue for me. Now, another downside to these tires is obviously the miles per gallon. The fuel efficiency has certainly gone down with these tires. In my specific case, and this is all hand-calculated mileage, this is not going by the Liometer in the computer or anything, I lost almost 3 miles per gallon just because of these wheels and tires. They're just heavy. I mean, they're heavy, and the rolling resistance, of course, is lower too because it's a more aggressive tread. These aren't meant for fuel efficiency. That's the trade-off when you have a beefier off-road tire. So yeah, I personally lost about 3 miles per gallon, which if fuel economy is an important thing to you, again, maybe you probably shouldn't be driving a V8 4runner in the first place, but I wouldn't recommend this tire size if you're trying to keep your vehicle as efficient as possible. Another downside to these wider tires, and again, 285s on a 4runner is pretty wide. This one specifically came with 265s from the factory. The Limiteds come with 265s on them. And it might not really show up in pictures or video, but in real life, it's a pretty wide tire. But a common downside to any wide tire, especially an off-road tire, is tram lining. If you're not sure what tram lining means, according to Tire Rack, tram lining is when directional control is disrupted by the vehicle's tendency to follow ruts and grooves in the road. So if you're on a really rough, rutted road, I've found that these tires are more likely to want to follow in those ruts and kind of throw you around a little bit. It's a little bit harder to keep the vehicle straight. I found it, especially on soft dirt roads, it's pretty noticeable. And it happens with every vehicle and every tire, but I did notice a clear difference when mounting these wider tires, and other vehicles that I've driven as well. Wider tires, that's just one of the aspects of them. That's just how they drive on rutted roads. Now, speaking of rutted roads or on-road performance, you mount these 285s on your 4runner and that performance is definitely going to decrease a little bit. It's not the end of the world. It's not really bad. I find this thing it has really good road manners, but your handling is going to go down. I find, like on high-speed on-ramps on highways and stuff, you can feel the flex in the sidewall. This is, again, a tall tire, and so they're a little bit more squirmy if you're cornering more aggressive. And aside from the handling, your braking performance is going to go down as well, because if you think about it, this is a taller tire, but it's also a lot heavier in most cases. And any kind of unsprung weight like that is your brakes are going to notice that they've got more to slow down, more momentum to slow down. So I did notice that a bit as well. The good thing is these 4th Gen 4runners have pretty good brakes on them from the factory. They got a pretty good sized caliper, and they're pretty powerful. So it's not a big problem for me, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't notice a decrease in braking. Another downside is the loss in power. Well, I mean, obviously it's not like an actual loss in power, but the power has to go towards turning these heavier tires instead of moving the vehicle down the road. So you do have a loss in performance. And typically you don't have to re-gear with these Toyotas with this size tire. You can if you want to, but it's not like a requirement like it would be if you're running 35s or something like that. You are going to lose some performance, and again, that's just another kind of trade-off with off-road ability. But on these V8 4runners, though, I don't really feel like it's much of a problem at all. Like, these things have lots of power and torque right from the factory. and they don't struggle with spinning these tires at all. Now, that's also a big reason why I'm not running this size on the Tacoma, because it just has the little 4-liter in it. And again, for a V6, the 4-liter is not a bad engine, don't get me wrong, but it just doesn't have the low-end torque that this 4.7 has. And I feel like it would be straining a lot to be daily driving with this size tire. So the 265s are the right move for the Tacoma, at least in my case. And another downside too, I'm not sure, I can't really prove this at all, of course, but just theoretically, there's going to be more wear and tear on your vehicle, whether it's the brakes or the driveline. You are putting more strain on everything by running these bigger, heavier tires. So that's another thing to consider as well. Now, a lot of these downsides are caused by the extra weight due to the tire just being so much bigger, right? And it's possible that you can combat that by mounting them on a set of lightweight aluminum wheels. And that's what I did with these methods. They're a pretty lightweight wheel. They're strong and everything. Everybody uses them for off-road and stuff. But I was able to save some weight on the wheel while gaining weight on the tire. So in a way, it kind of, I'm not going to say it balances out, but it does help kind of go in the right direction. You got a big heavy tire, but then a lighter weight wheel. It does help. So that's another thing that I would recommend if you're worried about some of these downsides. You can always mount them on a lighter weight set of wheels, especially if your truck has like heavier steel wheels on it from the factory or something. You might want to consider doing some aftermarket wheels. Now, another thing is, especially with these V8 4Runners that are full-time four-wheel drive, is you're going to need a proper size spare tire. And I didn't try it myself, but from what I've read online, a 285 doesn't fit this factory spare tire location very well. So what I ended up doing was, well, what I first ended up doing was just ignoring the whole situation and just hoping I didn't get a flat tire. But it's not a really responsible thing to do, so maybe you don't be like me. But before we took this thing across the country with a camper trailer, I decided I gotta have some kind of a spare tire. So I ended up doing a 255/70/18 off of a Jeep Wrangler. It's just a factory size from the Jeep Wrangler, so you can find those used all over the place for pretty cheap. And so I mounted that on the factory 18-inch limited wheel, and the overall diameter is pretty darn close. It's close enough that it shouldn't cause any trouble with the four-wheel drive system. I still wouldn't be driving around on it for fun, but it will keep me from getting stranded out in the middle of nowhere and get me to a tire shop or something if I had to. And one last downside here, guys, is the price of these tires. It's a big tire, and you're going to pay for it. I noticed that when I was looking at the pricing for the 265s on the Tacoma, they're quite a bit cheaper than these, and it kind of reminded me of what I paid for these back a few years ago. So you're going to pay for them, but to me, I think they're totally worth it. So what's the final word? Like, in the end, I'm all for running 285s on the 4Runner like this, especially the V8s. I think they can handle them just fine, and even though there are definite clear downsides, I'm okay with all of those. To me, it's a good trade-off for the look and the performance that you get with these. But keep in mind though, guys, you got to remember this size tire is what comes factory on the Ram Power Wagon, and that's a huge heavy-duty truck. So of course there's going to be downsides to running these on a small vehicle like the 4Runner, but it's to be expected, and I'm cool with it. So in my case, it's totally worth it on the 4Runner, running these 285s. It's not so much worth it on the Tacoma though, and so that's why I did the 265s. That's also a daily driver. We don't really take it off-road. We need to at least have one vehicle that's somewhat fuel efficient, and this V8 4Runner is not that. Keep in mind though too, when I'm talking about the fuel efficiency and the power loss, my 4Runner is modified. I do have Doug Thorley headers and a Gibson exhaust on it, so it's breathing a little bit better, and I did see some of those losses kind of regained. I'm making more power. It's a little bit more fuel efficient than a stock one would be, so I'm not quite breaking even, but it definitely helps. Now, if you don't have those mods on your 4Runner, then you're going to be singing a different tune. But anyways, if you're on the fence about which size tire to run on your 4Runner like I was, and I went back and forth quite a bit, then hopefully this video helps you out a little bit. I hope it kind of gives you a little bit what to expect by running this size tire on your 4Runner. As of now, no regrets. So If you're cool with those downsides and you don't expect it to be a race car, you don't expect it to be a Prius, and let's face it, you got some deep pockets for the cost of the tires and the cost of gas to go with it, I say go for it. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you on the next one.